Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Living Beyond the Numbers podcast. I'm your host, Jude Boudreaux, here with our Director of Positivity, Caleb Arringdale.
Hello.
Right, and we've got a really special guest today, somebody I've gotten to know over the years, I consider a friend, and I think is just a tremendously gifted person in working in our space of money and life and emotions, as her in her background as a therapist and now working in her own practice with assisting families and financial planners with dealing with some of these big life questions and how money intersects with everything. So that's Ashley Quamme, who's joined us here today. So thanks for joining us, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Jude. Thanks, Caleb. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have the conversation. And I think I didn't do a great job of giving your background there. So maybe why don't you share a little bit of kind of what's led you to what you're doing now?
Well, I think you hit the high points there, but a little bit more context. My home discipline is in marriage and family therapy. So I started out my career, college, graduate school, licensure in marriage and family therapy, had my own private practice, actually up until this year. And that practice evolved from a solo to a group practice, focusing on serving couples and serving families. Initially, that's where it started. It has evolved over the last 6 or 7 years to focusing more on the intersection of relationships and money, essentially. So, how does money show up in our relationships? Whether that be familial, whether that be, our partnerships, our marriage, even in parenting, like how does money show up? What are the challenges? And, at least my role in that has been to support clients, helping them to understand why it is that they think, feel, and do money the way that they do. So that is kind of where I have lived. That's a little bit of my thinking. So just to give some context there in terms of how do I think about problems or how do I think about solutions, change, all of that. About 6 or 7 years ago, I stumbled upon financial therapy, and that really came out of some challenging couples cases, not knowing how to serve them best. And I found financial therapy and really fell in love with it. But from there, I also fell in love with something else, which was helping financial advisors. And so over the last several years, my work has evolved. I have pivoted now, what I jokingly call over to the dark side of financial services, and primarily working with and for RIAs, firms, for advisors, training and helping them, but also working with their clients as well. On the personal side, my husband, he's a CFP. I've got 2 kids who are preteens, which is a beautiful stage of life, but also a challenging one in and of itself. So my cup is always running over, Jude. In terms of who I am, just background, all of that. My cup's just always running over, but I am thrilled to be here and to be amongst like-minded people like you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Well, I know you and Clayton have lots of fullness in life, which is a beautiful thing, and sometimes is hard to manage in this middle part for sure too. So yeah, at least they're preteens. Like mine's 15, my daughter, and so it's a different, it's a little different animal as I keep learning. I always refer to Lucy as my great teacher, and she doesn't love it, but it's been true.
I think that's a fantastic title. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. So so I mean, I'm really excited to have this conversation because so much of what we talk about with clients when they've achieved a level of success, there's a lot of numbers and optimization things to do, but there's also a lot of, I think your line was like, even when clients think it's about the numbers, it's rarely about the numbers. So, and I see this come up constantly. So maybe just share a little bit about what do you think how do you see that show up in, these successful families' lives?
Yeah, so I talk about it or explain it like an iceberg. So if we can all imagine here just an iceberg, what we see above the waters, the external financial stuff, right? And that might be the numbers, as you shared. It might even be some of the behaviors like spending, not spending, taking risks, avoiding risk. It's all the stuff that you can literally just see. When we dip our heads, though, below the waters and we take a look at that more internal side, we see that the iceberg's a lot bigger. There's more stuff there. There's greater context. And the stuff there that shows up is really, our belief systems, our attitudes, our biases, our money stories. Who are the, caretakers in our lives? How did they do money? What did we witness and see growing up from a relationship side as it related to money? Certainly things like, maybe more traumatic experiences, like divorce, bankruptcy, job loss, things like that. That's all just great context that really informs everything that we see above the waters, all of the behaviors, all of the numbers, there. So, I don't know if that's a helpful way to explain it. I'm happy to go into more if we need to.
Yeah, no, I think I think it gets right to the heart of it, because there is, we are, the total of kind of our thoughts and our histories and things that we've learned that we're aware of and things that we've internalized that maybe we're not aware of, and how that all affects everything is, it's all integrated, and it's very difficult to see as much as we'd like for it to be objective. It's not always that way. Yeah. So what I really would love to talk about today is kind of this intergenerational idea, that when you've got a family that's achieved like some, significant financial success, often I hear from them a real unease around, well, how do we deal with our adult children now with regard to this money? We'd like to help support them. We'd like to do things for our kids or for our grandkids, but I don't want them to be dependent upon us. I don't want to feel like we're spoiling them. So where do you start with a family who's kind of pondering that big question?
I first start by just validating that, because I think it's really a normal experience, thought, feeling. Like all of that is really normal and it makes sense. And I think before we really go anywhere, like it's important first for clients to have that validation that it is okay that you feel this way, that it doesn't have to be one or the other. Sometimes clients will say like, well, I should want to give, all of this money like to them, or I should, divide things up equally amongst my kids. There's a lot of judgment, right? There, or this should be easier than maybe what it is. And I think when we put ourselves into this, either or, kind of dichotomy, it causes a lot of internal friction. But if we can just own the fact that we can say, yes, like I want to do this and it's hard, or I want to be able to give, and I'm also worried that I might spoil or enable my kids. Like that is just, we need to start just first there and own those spaces and validate that all of that is okay. And just because we choose one path or another, it does not mean that any of that might happen. So first, I think we need to just start like there and kind of distill that and normalize it for clients, because truth be told, Jude, like for most of our clients, they don't really have anyone else that they can talk about this stuff with. On the practitioner side, like you might be the only person that your client can have this conversation with. And so it's a privilege, there, but also keeping that in mind, I think it's even more important that we validate for clients that this is okay. This is totally normal, and it is all right to have and feel or think both of those things. From there, after we've done such a great job and clients feel like super warm and fuzzy, right? And they're like, oh, this feels so great. Okay, but now what do we do, right? Because now we want the solution or the direction to go in. Depending upon maybe family circumstances or how even the adult children are, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And so, let's just take maybe for sake of example purposes that it's a family situation and there's two adult children, and both of the adult children are, independently living and, maybe fairly responsible, doing like generally well. So for example purposes, we'll just kind of go with this example. I think that starting out for this G1, so generation one, like family, first just start, if they haven't, just start by talking about money and giving. I think sometimes that G1, they want to just, they kind of put the cart like before the horse. And like, if you've not really even talked about money with your adult children first, I don't think that we want to just jump into like the deep end and, start then giving, right? Let's just maybe ease ourselves into it and let's just start talking about money. And maybe what that might look like is, hey, your dad and I were updating our estate docs. We're updating our will. And we just want to let you know, like, there's nothing for you to do. We just want to let you know. Or, hey, like, did you know, fun fact, that we have this amount in, insurance, our life insurance policies are about this. So if anything were to ever happen, we want you to know that expenses, funeral expenses, that stuff would be covered. Just kind of teasing some of that can be a great starting place if you've not been talking about money along the way. So, from there, maybe if you have and you've gained some comfortability and there's this desire to give, I think you can do some experiments. And what I mean by that is, let's just think about the next year. And over the next year, is there an amount that you might like to give to each of your kids? And maybe that G1 is like, well, our daughter, Amanda, is getting ready to have a baby. And we really would like to be able to give her and her husband some greater financial support because with a new baby, she's going to take some time off. And we'd like to give her, let's just say, like $10,000 to help support, some of the needs that might come with that. Fantastic. Wonderful. So you'd like to give Amanda, let's just say, a ballpark of about 10,000 because of the new family. Yes. Oh, our other son, he's getting married later this year. And we would like to be able to pay for their honeymoon. It's probably going to be $15,000, right? And then it's like, wait, but we can't give him 15 and, her 10, like, so then it has to be like the same, right? And so thinking about this next year, typically what comes up, I don't know if it does, for you, Jude, but typically what I find that comes up is that sometimes that amount is not the same. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. Let's go with in this case that I've been running with, that it's not the same. Because I think that, if it is the same, that's pretty easy, right? Great. Okay. Awesome. We give them both the same. We'll revisit this conversation next year and maybe we add on to it in terms of some other future thinking. Wonderful. Okay. It's not the same. What do we do? One of the things I talk about with clients is that what's really, really difficult when we think about giving to our children is that oftentimes we think that in order for things to be fair, they have to be equal, meaning the same amount. If I'm going to give to our son, Andrew, I want to pay for his honeymoon. He has said that the honeymoon is going to be $15,000. I have to give Amanda $15,000 because that's fair and that's equal. But sometimes fair doesn't always mean equal. Sometimes it might be there's a greater need. We could easily flip those numbers and just say, like, for Amanda, because they're having a baby and there's a greater need, maybe she needs more financial resources, right, than what maybe Andrew does. Maybe it's like, hey, maybe Andrew's not getting married. Maybe he's just, single, living his best life, right? And we want to give him, like $4,000, but Amanda's having a baby and we want to give her greater financial support. Well, it wouldn't be fair, but Amanda's life circumstances just might necessitate that. That might, it being equitable isn't always equal. And that's a hard concept, I think, for a lot of parents to wrap their heads around. And this comes into play, I think, sometimes when adult children have differing needs, not just from maybe a life stages, but if one is not as financially responsible, or if one has special needs, or maybe needs mental health care, or other things, medical or not, right? And we get caught in this trap of, in order to give and be fair, it has to be equal. And so sometimes that might be the case. But if we're trying things out on an experiment level, then, we don't have to think about it as just fair. We could think about it maybe in a way of being more equitable. Let me pause because I know I kind of just went down a few different rabbit holes there, and I saw some head nods, but I'll pause there and just kind of let you chime in. Tell me where you want to go with that, Jude.
No, I think that was super great. Caleb, I'm wondering, like, do you have a question that kind of comes to mind as you thought about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I know several clients have expressed very similar ideas, right? Where you have maybe one child who is a doctor and another child who's a teacher, right? And the parents are very proud of both of them. The doctor is making, 600K a year. The teacher's making 60K a year, right? And, they're both doing great things. Parents are extremely proud, but how do you help them and feel fair about it, feel equitable about it? And I know that's an exact issue we've seen a lot of. And I know that has caused a lot of stress. But kind of thinking back to what you said, obviously, if these conversations haven't started until they're adults, well, okay, obviously, you have to maybe ease your way into it. But at what age would you recommend parents to start having these conversations with their children?
2, 3, as soon as they can start forming, like, conceptually, like, understanding, like, numbers, but even things like giving. I mean, as I say, like, like, as young as possible.
Mhm.
And there's different ways, as you said, Caleb, like, at age appropriate levels. I will say that for our kids, and bless their hearts, they have a therapist for a mom and a financial planner for a father. Like, truly, like, oh my goodness, I do feel for them, in a lot of ways. But I know where they are right now at 11 and 13, we are having conversations around, investing. So they each have, like, investment accounts. And so teaching them just around what is investing at a basic level. Certainly we have conversations around, expenses, income versus expense, at age appropriate levels, but giving as well. What does that look like? Affordability, what, looks differently. So I think that having these conversations, is important. We've also had conversations around, like, our, you know, our will, and, hey, what would happen if, both of us were to pass away? Not only, like, where would you go, but financially, hey, here's probably what would happen. Here's what this would look like. And these things would be covered for you or not. As well as at this age, I say this somewhat joke, but, I will say, like, hey, my job is to help you to grow to be a successful adult. And when you turn 18, you need to get grown and get gone. Like, planting just seeds and messaging there around, like, there's some expectations of the kind of adult and what responsibility might look like. So, lots of answers there, Caleb, to that question. But I would say, like, now, maybe your kids are older, but now is really the best time, if you haven't.
I don't have any kids, so problem solved. But yeah, from the conversations we've had with clients, absolutely, the earlier the better. Totally agree.
Yeah, there's so many age appropriate ways to bring them into that conversation and just make them aware of it. And I think it's even more important now. I remember going to the grocery store and watching my mom write a check, and that was one experience. But honestly, for my kids, like, they grew up and, packages show up at the house. I have a phone now. I touch my phone against this thing and people give me groceries. And so money's already an imaginary concept. And then you get we further extract it from a exchange of paper currency or coins to all electronic. It requires, I think, a lot more conversation for kids to really wrap all their heads around it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, just to add on to that, coming back to some of this concept of, like, equal versus equitable, you know, My daughter's volleyball she plays travel volleyball. My son plays travel soccer. We are crazy. Clayton and I are absolutely crazy. But there's different costs. And I will tell you that Abby's volleyball is more expensive. It costs us more than Cameron's travel soccer. And so we don't rub that in each of their faces. But then we also don't try to financially make that up to Cameron because we spend more, kind of there. Summer camps come around and it's hey, you each get, one or two summer camps and they need to fall, kind of, they don't know all the detail around the finance, but like,
Yeah.
you can do one big camp where it's like a week long and then you can do like a day camp, but like here are just some options there. And certainly we spend more on one versus sometimes than the other. And so I think for parents who might have that, like, oh, it's got to be just equal. Like thinking back to if your kids are grown, like, did you spend the same amount on both of your kids? You probably didn't. And that's okay because one might have needed different things than the other. And that's fine. Talking about this sometimes just with your planner, or if you need to, a financial therapist can be just really helpful if that is really a big struggle for those G1, Generation 1, like parents. If this is just a difficult topic, thinking about giving and, the guilt or shame or whatever, all of the worries start to come up.
In thinking about our kids, I mean, obviously, like, to say nobody does. I'm sure somebody has like an actual sheet that shows to the penny what was spent from one child versus the other.
Oh, I have a client who does have that exact sheet. So I know it
That's
exists,
impressive.
but it is.
Yeah. No, some people, I think it's a way of feeling control over something that largely feels out of control.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about our kids and with things not necessarily being equal, I think it's kind of lends to the part of like setting financial boundaries. And so, how do you decide, well, we can say yes to, buying you a $2 million house, but we are choosing not to their children. And so how do you help people establish those boundaries and maintain relationships very well?
Yeah, I come back to values. And this is where I think it's really important for families, couples, to be able to name and identify what is it that you value? What are those core values? Maybe those 5. And really leading from that place. Because when we do, there might be hard points along the way. Like, yes, we can afford this, but we're choosing not to. And if we can tie it back to, we're not making this decision because, we have a value of, I don't know, hard work or responsibility, then while it might be hard, it doesn't take away the hardness. We can at least feel good that we've made a decision that is in line with our value and we've modeled that to our children as well.
With that in mind, then I see a lot of families, especially very successful couples, who maybe have gifted less to their children during their lives, right? Just because of these exact same ideas. But then they pass away, and then all of a sudden they're leaving their children 5-10 million a pop, right? And you see kind of years and years of nothing, and then one massive lump sum. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all, but how do you see that play out with people? Does it seem to be better to kind of give throughout the life, or does it seem to be better to give a large lump sum at the end of life?
I think that's a really personal choice. And, as you said, Caleb, it's not right or wrong. But I do have conversations sometimes with those parents around how important is it for you to see, you know, the gift that you've given, the impact of that. Like, do you want to be able to see that and witness it? And for some, it might be like, you know what, like, no, it's not. For some, it might be like, well, I really would like to see my, you know, kids like not be so stressed, or I really would like for my daughter to be able to work part-time so that she can spend more time like with her kids. I hate seeing her so stressed out and so worried. Like I would love for her to be able to have that, and that would be meaningful for me. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think some of the question there might be is how important is it for you to see the impact there around the gift while you're living.
So we talked about family and a lot of these challenges and difficult, big, heavy conversations and things. Maybe we can turn the dial a little bit because I did want to ask you about creating traditions. We talk about legacies beyond just the financial. So have you seen ways that families kind of create, these traditions that stick and that, or they are, regardless of, the amount of money that it, maybe they can afford to do something much more expensive now, but they've got this family ritual or thing that's important. And so they continue to do so.
Yeah, I mean, trips come to mind, but that might be different depending upon a family's situation. I think that's one that I hear a lot of families first go to is that some kind of meaningful annual, trip that they want to take. There are also, I think about like culture and food and that intersection, family heritage. So just a quick story. My husband's extended family immigrated from Norway a few generations ago. And this past summer, we had the amazing opportunity to go over to Norway and to see some of the family churches there, the family, communities there. And that was really incredible and meaningful there. And so, my point, I guess, in that is the Norwegian culture is something I am not Norwegian. I am a mutt. I have just come in and mixed up the gene pool, here. So, but I have embraced, at least from my husband, like, that family, that has that culture there. And so one of the ways that we have done that is that every year, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, and my kids, they make a dish, they make a recipe, lefse. And so it's a process, like it's a whole 2 day like process there. And does it require money? Like, yes, it does, but it's like potatoes and some other ingredients that, are there. But it's really just the experience and like time together of, creating like traditions and like legacy. And so I think that there are just some other things that we can lean into that maybe aren't big from like a financial standpoint that might be meaningful, but just even small ways. Food is generally something, recipe. I think like recipes that like get passed down, stuff like that. So there's a lot of creativity here. Which is cool. There's also a lot of tools now in tech that can help support passing down, legacy and like story and stuff like that, which I think is great. But I would say like the sky's the limit, like first starting with maybe what you already have, what's meaningful for you. If I'm that G1, like kind of parent, like think like what is really meaningful for you? How would you like to spend your time? Maybe it's doing a grandparents trip like with your grandkids, there, or maybe it's something different. If you're kind of at a loss, like maybe thinking about your own culture and like, heritage, is there anything there that you'd like to pass down, to your kids and or to your grandkids there? So lots of room to get creative. I don't know if I'm the best in terms of creativity in that place, but I've seen a lot of really amazing things done and experienced through that.
Oh, that's so great. And it reminds me, I wanted to mention this book earlier. I don't remember the author's name, but there's a book called Tiny Experiments. And she writes about just this idea of like, you don't have to necessarily make grand changes, but we can do like tiny experiments. So when you're thinking about gifting, if you haven't been gifting much, like, well, why don't you start with a little experiment and see how it goes? And then you can kind of build off of it. We don't have to just suddenly start to crank out the big checks or go on a 4-week trip. We can go on a weekend somewhere and do this, or we can try to bake something together. We just need to try some things. One of my mantras within the company is like try it, fail at it, learn from it. And so I think to encourage families, we need to have some experiments with this, and not everything is going to go great, but if we try some of these things, some will work out and we'll learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
Great. Well, this has been a really great conversation, and obviously we could go a lot longer, but we've got to be mindful of our time here. So Caleb, maybe we pivot over to some of our rapid fire questions.
Yeah, thanks again for this amazing conversation. But we always like to finish up with a few just rapid fire questions, get to know people a little bit. Favorite question, as always, is what's your favorite animal?
Elephants.
Why?
I don't know. I love elephants though. I have elephant necklaces. I have little elephant like trinkets. I guess in terms of why, like, I love their intelligence, but I love their capacity and their level of empathy, and thinking about just the mother like child bond and just, I don't know, all the things that I've watched. It's just, I just love them. Not to mention they're huge. But they're huge, but like so compassionate and like gentle and anyway, yeah, I love them. I love elephants.
So, in general, as we've been asking this question, the taller the person, the larger the animal. So, I think you're an outlier to that.
I am an outlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I stretched before this, Caleb. I knew the rough weather was coming, and so I stretched in preparation kind of for this. So I wanted to bring my best.
No, very nice. What is the best money you've ever spent?
Ooh, the best money that I've ever spent. It's hand down. It has been on experiences. Now, if you want me to like funnel that down into what experience, I don't know. But what I would say is that there have been a few here recently, like with our kids, and the trip that I mentioned earlier to Norway might be up there, like top three. Might be up there top three. So, but experiences like high level and general, all of them would be experiences.
Oh, very cool. My great grandparents emigrated from Norway. So, and I have not been to Norway. So it's a trip I really need to make. So,
listen, I'll give you our itinerary.
Yeah, you've inspired me. Oh, that sounds great. Along that line, what's your favorite place to travel to?
Oh, anywhere outside of the Augusta, Georgia area. Yeah. So we do a lot of regional travel. Located here in Augusta, Georgia. We do a lot of regional travel with family, like in sports. And so, I like to get out of just like our comfort, like zone and go different places. And, I don't mind doing it by myself or with Clayton, but I really love getting to bring our kids and, watching our kids learn, but also experience these places like through their eyes. So, yeah, anywhere outside of the Southeast, I would say.
Very nice. Augusta is one of the few places that has its own tax rule named after it. So that's always fun.
I'm slightly aware of that. Yes.
Go figure. Favorite place you haven't traveled to yet? Say dream trip.
There's quite a few places in Europe that I would love to go. There is kind of like the big like Australia, New Zealand. That I think would be really cool, really fun. I have the problem of there are too many places, but not enough weeks in the year or years more, right for some of these trips. So yeah, anything that's on my list, like we could just pick one and I'd be like, yeah, I'm game for, as long as it's different.
Oh, very cool. Final one, best advice you ever received.
Ooh, I don't know if it's the best or if it's been the most memorable and impactful advice. And that was from my father. So my dad is a CPA. It's like really ironic. Well, my birthday is April 15th. So if we just want to take that a step further, there's a lot of irony there. The best advice, my dad worked inside of a firm. My dad worked, for firms his whole career. I'm still working. But I do remember him saying, to work for yourself, work for yourself, be your own boss. And that stuck enough with me to where very quickly out of graduate school, like launched my own private practice. And so I've been, working for myself now for almost 15 years. So I don't know if it's the best, but it's been the most impactful, I would say.
Oh, very cool. Many thanks. Those are great.
Yeah, no, I feel like we could do this for a few more hours, Ashley, but I'm so grateful that you spent some time with us here today, and sure we'll have you back at some point to talk probably about a little more focused topic as things evolve here. But any final words or last thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, you guys are great, doing great work. So I appreciate you guys putting, content like this out there for the world to be able to have access to.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, I do have to ask this now. So, like, you guys, like, where are you? Where did you grow up? Like, are you not from Georgia?
No, I am a North Carolina girl.
That's
So
still not a y'all. Like, I mean, I'm just
I have learned professionally, my accent over the years has, when I'm in professional spaces, has started to, diminish. But if you put me back with my family, very, very quickly will that accent and y'all and bless your heart and, Lord, those kind of
yeah.
things will start to come out. But yeah, I'm from Durham, North Carolina, where Duke University uh, is. So Southern girl, but in the professional space, I try to, speak to where others can understand me.
Gotcha. Growing up down the bayou here in Louisiana, like I did, there's friends of mine that I have to translate for that Karen can't really understand what they're saying. So I completely get it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Ashley, for bringing all of you to this conversation. We really appreciate it and had a great time talking with you. So thanks again. And so thanks to everybody for joining us for another episode of the Living Beyond the Numbers podcast. You can reach me. I'm Jude at theplanningcenter.com. Caleb is Caleb at theplanningcenter.com. And Ashley, folks wanted to get in touch with you. How would they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Ashley Quamme, or you can head over to my website, www.beyondthefp.com. There's a contact form there that you can reach out via that, or on YouTube as well at Beyond the Plan Solutions.
Great. Well, thanks again, Ashley, and thanks everybody. Hope to see you at another podcast episode real soon.